April 6, 2022. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm Diane Barrett, and we're here for the BE collection with Pam Dent. So thank you for being a part of the collection.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
So where were you born?
Right here, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Really? Huh?
Yeah.
Have you stayed in Tennessee your whole life?
Nope.
No.
I have not. I've taken jobs here and there. I've lived in Denver and Kansas and various states around the South when I planted trees one year. But I was in Denver for close to 10 years, moved back here, 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. So this is my home. I own a house here, so I really came back home. Yeah.
And do you live in that house now, or?
I do. It's my grandmother. I bought my grandmother's house, which is like 2 blocks down the road from the house I grew up in. And so I bought this house from her in 1976. So I'm a girl of the South, I guess.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
It's good on you. So were you close to your grandmother?
I wasn't close to anybody in my family.
Really? How come? How many siblings do you have?
No, I'm an only child.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. No, I did not have really close relationships. I mean, we were family and we did family things, and I love my cousin. We played jokes on each other all the time, but a closeness with anybody, including my mother and father, I did not have. I never felt like I fit in, and I don't think that had anything to do with me being gay.
Are your parents still living?
No.
No.
They've been gone a long time. Dad in the night that Bill Clinton was inaugurated, Dad died. Yeah, so that was 1990, and Mom died 18 years ago, I think. So they've been gone a while.
And what would you say your occupation is today? How do we list you?
Well, I would call myself a writer. I teach, but COVID basically put my work as a teacher on hold 2 years ago. And I do in-person class. I still teach some on Zoom. I teach classes to massage therapists. I've been a massage therapist for 30 years.
Okay.
And so I teach to them, but COVID nixed that. But Susan and I had formed a nonprofit, I think she told you, called Heart to Heart.
Right.
And we teach compassionate caregiving, and touch is a big part of that. And we have organized classes that we do. Well, that was all put on hold with COVID. Right. Because, nobody was using volunteers. I mean, it's just the way it is. So I would call myself a writer/teacher.
When you write, what are your topics that you cover?
Well, right now, if I were to brand myself, I'm a memoirist. I write about my life. The book that I'm writing that they've changed me to now is, it's called, the working title is The Reckoning of an Old White Woman. After George Floyd was murdered, and all this came up about white privilege, and I started taking a look at my life. I grew up here in the South. I'm 71 years old, so I grew up in a very segregated, racist South. Half of my family was racist. And so I started taking a look at it and started writing stories about it. And hence this book is going to be my personal stories, and trying to find within myself. I'm not racist, what I found out. I have implicit bias. We all do. And then the first book that I was going to write, that I had almost finished before they changed, was a memoir, my journey with my mom through her dementia.
Through what?
Through her dementia.
Oh,
and so, yeah. So I tend to write about my life experiences. So, yeah.
People like that.
Yeah.
They think, it's real.
It is. Yeah.
Can't
get more real than that.
I know.
Yeah. 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 But
Did your mom live with you during her process?
Yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I had moved to Denver. Dad was already dead. And when she was living here alone, and that's like, a friend of mine told me that she was concerned because mom was having trouble with memory. So I moved her out to Denver with me, and then we moved back here. But yeah, she lived with me the last 10 years of her life. So,
Oh.
yeah,
How long have you and Susan been together?
20 something years,
Oh.
29, 22, 23 years, a long
More
time.
than 50,
A
right?
long time.
So your mother lived with the two of you then?
Yes, she
Wow.
did.
Mhm.
And interesting enough, my family, even though I wasn't close to any of them, um, they welcomed my girlfriends, right? My friends in. They were invited to Thanksgiving and Christmas, and my parents. It was just that unspoken thing. I think the only reason mom was disappointed is she wanted grandchildren. She wanted me to get married. And at one point, she said, "I don't care if you get married, just have a baby." So
No, I don't think so.
yeah,
Right.
she just wanted grandkids.
Yeah.
But so it's always this unspoken part of my life.
Mhm.
And Susan was living in California. We met in California and had a long distance relationship for a while. She said, I'm not gonna move in. We're not gonna be together unless you just open up with your mom. So I did. And I think it scared my mother at first because I think she thought she was going to lose me because Susan was in California, right?
Right.
And I think she thought I was going to leave.
Mhm.
But from the minute she met Susan, she fell in love with her. And she just, yeah. So it
Great.
was no problem. Yeah, it was good. It was all good.
You took on a difficult task to bring your
Yeah,
mother into your life with your lover.
yeah,
Wasn't easy.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
brave of both of you, actually.
yeah.
Thank you. Right. Are there anyone in your family who's homosexual besides yourself?
My cousin Terry, he's my third cousin. He's an actor. He's older. I'm 71. Gosh, he's 77 now. He's pushing 80, I guess. He lives in New York. And if there's anybody else close, I don't know of them. But yeah,
So he's out.
yeah,
Great. I
yeah.
asked that because you're probably aware this is archived material, and the archivist at Cal State Dominguez Hills makes note. So if people are trying to do research, use this as a project for themselves. It'll be in their margins, so to speak. So,
Yeah. Oh, he's very out.
uh,
Yeah. He's
right.
he's been on broad. He's been nominated for a Tony. He's yeah.
He's
he's
comfortable, right?
yeah. He's very comfortable. Yes.
Good. When were you aware that your sexual preference was women?
Grammar school probably. Although I didn't know if it was just a grammar. It's just what kids do. Um, I will say this because at my age, so we're talking back in the 60s, right? 50s and 60s. If any young woman is watching this, um, my dad had a collection of medical books and dictionaries, and uh, I think I was still in grammar school, maybe 7th grade, and I got one down. I don't know why. I was looking at the definition of homosexual. I don't know why. It was in the medical dictionary. And I remember what it said. This was the 60s. Things have changed. It told me that I would never be able to contribute anything to society because I was a homosexual.
Really? Quite a
And
definition.
that was the definition psychiatry gave it back then. I guess that was in that book. And I think it had a huge effect on me at the first part of my life. So it's You know, if any young person's watching this, don't let anybody tell you can't do anything because of who you are. You
Right.
know, because you can.
Right.
But it did have an effect on me, I think, early on in my life. Yeah.
Well, that's good. This is part of what this is about, is telling people, keep going.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
prejudice is everywhere, it's out there.
Yeah.
And, but it does not have to stop you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. That must have been quite, so what did you do with the information?
I think I internalized it. I was a kid,
Yeah, I
and I
know.
internalized it. And you know, I really didn't want to go to college. I wanted to. I told my parents had money saved up. It's like, you know, I really want to go to Europe and bicycle around Europe for a while, and then come back and go to school. Well, then they told me all of a sudden the money wasn't there, right?
Uh,
So I ended up starting college here.
uh,
But it wasn't. It's just for about 10 years I went from one thing to another. And it wasn't until I turned 30 that I really got serious about a career. My first career, if you want to call it that, was in nuclear power. I live at the hub of Tennessee Valley Authority here. Yes. So, you know, it was the biggest employer here for a long, long time.
hmm.
And they were building a nuclear plant like 10 miles from my house. They'd been building it for a while. And I got on there in their on their power plant operator training program.
Wow,
So that's when
that's impressive.
that's when I was 30. And I spent 10 years in that business. I left and went with Bechtel. At the time was the largest privately owned engineering company in the world.
Were you living independent of your family then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I moved out. I just wanted to be out on my own. I moved out my first year of college. Yeah. Yeah. Then,
did you move out alone? Did you have a roommate?
I had a partner at the time, the preacher's daughter.
There you go.
Yeah.
And how did you meet her? You attended church regularly. They
Yeah.
say meet people at church, right? I've heard that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And I just, you know, went to college for a couple of years, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I spent 10 years in various jobs in nuclear power, in operations, and then as a startup engineer.
Was it interesting?
Yeah. I liked it. I got to a point where it was all about the money, and it didn't feed my soul, and I needed something else.
How long did you stay with the preacher's daughter?
Oh, we were only together a couple of years. Yeah. Then my next relationship was 3. Then my next relationship was 4.
Wow. So you kept building.
They kept going. Yeah.
But you sound like you always had a relationship.
I got emotionally healthy. Was I doing therapy back then? I can't remember. But I lived alone for 7 years and got to know myself and be comfortable with myself and not dependent on anybody else, you know, for anything. And
you recommend that as a good life passage event?
Yeah, very. Yeah. So when I met Susan, I felt, and I was already thinking, you know, the next relationship I get in, I've got to get in with somebody emotionally stable. You know, and
it's not easy.
Yeah, and we met because of the woman we were both doing work with, a therapist.
Oh, really? She got you together?
Yeah, it was a good fit, and you know, we were both well on our way to, you know, being emotionally mature enough to have a relationship that lasts over 20 years. So
that's great. How long did you stay in the therapy relationship after you met each other?
Well, we weren't. Carol.
Take your time. Take time. We have lots of time.
So we kept meeting each other at the workshops.
I see.
Yeah, and then I did individual therapy with her. She did too. So But we met probably a year after we first met.
Mhm.
Then we got together.
Mhm.
Yeah. But Carolyn's workshops were really intense, so you got to know people at a deep level. So,
You had
yeah,
another motive, I can tell.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
all do.
yeah.
Good. Have you lived together since you first met?
No, that we did that long distance thing I was here for about a year.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, maybe 6 months, and I moved to Denver.
Mhm.
I had wanted to move to California, but Carolyn, our mentor and therapist, lived in Denver, and she was trying to pull both of us to Denver. And I moved to Denver first. And so 6 months later, Susan moved. So maybe a year, long distance relationship for a year. Yeah. And then we've been together ever since. So,
That's great.
yeah.
So if you look at this as advice to someone that's trying to find a solid relationship, what would you say to them?
I would say know yourself.
Mhm.
Know yourself separate of anybody else, separate of any other relationships. Get to know yourself, who you are, be comfortable with who you are, be confident in who you are, and knowing that you don't need anybody else to complete your life for you. Now, the love thing, yes, you complete my life, in that way, yeah, fine, but don't, I mean, that's, yeah. No, that was this would not have happened, this 20 plus year thing would not have happened if I hadn't had those 7 years by myself.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think it's important, just because I had gone from one relationship to another without taking a break and a breather to get to know me.
That's pretty common.
Yeah.
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 So you recommend the break.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good. I
Yeah.
agree with that. It's hard to do because people are afraid to be lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
Yeah. And at first, when that last relationship broke up, I was like, I can't be alone. I fell apart. And then I guess, like you could say, I fell in love with myself. I loved going to movies by myself and camping and hiking and doing all this stuff by myself. I was very comfortable doing that. So, and Susan and I both need our time. We have no problem one of us going off and doing something on their own, spending the weekend or longer, and having time by ourselves. So that's healthy, actually.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
How do you handle your differences and come together, since we all have those differences?
It's interesting. Susan and I, we somebody said, you never fight. Surely you fight. Everybody fights. But we didn't. It's, after 20 something years, you're going to get on each other's nerves about something. but at first we really didn't. I mean, our relationship, we were so copacetic. It was like, wow. We have spats and they never last more than a minute or two. We just let it. That's what I'm talking about. I think about being healthy. We just let it go, and it's not important, and we put it in perspective and let it go.
Good. Yeah. You talk it out, or
typically, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what's your dream for yourself 5 years from now?
To be alive. I'm 71. No.
Good. I like that.
Oh, wow. 5
I
years
realize
from now,
you could have a few dreams, right?
I guess 5 years from now, I'd like to have at least 3 books published.
Good. So how many have you published?
None. This will be my first 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got quite a few in me. So we'll see.
Good.
Yeah. And I'm hoping within 5 years, I'm hoping Susan's retired so we can just travel. Yeah.
Are you going to write about your coming out experience? Or?
Well, I probably am.
2 years.
We have talked about how much of my gay lot part of me to put in my books. And Carmen told me, she said, you can't extricate that out of your story. That's part of who you are. So I think probably Growing Up Gay in the South is probably a book that's going to come out.
Right.
Yeah. 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 I've had rocks thrown at me.
Have you?
Yeah, I mean, we have a huge festival here, and a real good friend of mine. We went for the fireworks one night. She had her neck was hurting, so she was sitting in front of me, and I was rubbing her neck, and all of a sudden I started feeling rocks hit me in the back. Then they started calling us lesbians. It's like, yeah, well, she wanted to turn around and go get them. I said, just ignore them.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So is it pretty dense? Do you feel the density of the prejudice?
Not as much now.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. I was shocked. I mean, thinking first of all that I'm sick and I'll never contribute to society as a kid, and then wondering there's nobody else in the world like this, especially here, right? I felt really isolated and alone. And then I started playing softball, and then I found out then it's like there's a place called the Go-Go Club right here next to the ball field. So the first time I went, I saw my biology teacher there from high school. and one of my male friends there, I figured he was gay, and I didn't even know it existed. So the culture was here in town, but it's very much not talked about.
And why do you think it's softball? So many lesbians play softball. I mean, if my life depended on it, I would never have been able to come up.
Especially back then, we didn't have access to the other sports like we did. Softball was the way, if we wanted to play sports and be athletic, that was it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I hope I don't. We've got a storm moving in. If all of a sudden I go away, it means, well, I'm on battery. If I lose the internet though. So if I go away, that's why. Yeah.
I wish we were having a storm. We're having a heat wave.
Yeah, these are bad storms getting ready to move in here, and not tornadoes and all that stuff. Yeah, we're in tornado alley here.
The most exciting part of your life to date?
The most exciting part of my life to date. I can tell you the most exciting thing I've ever done. There's a company that goes to, they used to go to the Gulf of St. Lawrence because it freezes every year. And the harp seals come up and lay their pups on the ice. And so you stay on Magdalen Islands. And they used to harvest the seals and bludgeon them to death. And now they did stop that and allow tourism to come in. So to be out on the ice, you fly out on a helicopter, you land on the frozen Gulf of St. Lawrence, and you go out and crawl on your belly to see these little harp seals. So it was, I took at least 3 copter rides out a day when I was there. And at one point, the ice started breaking up and the helicopter, it was separating. The helicopter almost fell in the water. It was a pretty amazing trip. That was the most amazing thing I've ever done. Yeah.
So how long ago was that?
Oh, that was in the 70s. It was a long time ago. But I think the most exciting part of my life was when I got into body work. Yeah, after I left the nuclear industry and took a couple years off, I actually farmed. I had a farm, commercial farm. I grew blackberries and raspberries and various vegetables for 10 years.
Wow.
And then I got into body work, and I think for me, I found myself, my true self in body work. So that for 30 years, that's what I've done.
What drew you to it?
I used to go on bicycle trips in Vermont, where you bike from one end to the next each day. where you stay. And at one of the inns, they had a massage therapist that came in and worked on various people. And there were like 7 of us staying in one big room, and she was in there working on people. And I'm like, gosh, that looks like it would be an interesting thing to do. I came back to Chattanooga and said, where do you learn to do this? There was a school here. And I went to open house in August and started in September. It's just, and then as soon as I went into the open house, it was one of those things where I knew I was home. And so for me, I love being with people. That's just been the best part of my life. No, I've done something, my gosh, talk about telling people they can do anything. I grew up in a Southern Baptist Convention church where women can't be preachers, right? No, women can't be preachers. When I moved back here, I went to Pilgrim Congregational United Church of Christ, went through their 3-year training to become a lay minister, and actually ended up preaching in the pulpit as a gay woman. And so there's nothing you can't do.
Did they keep you after you did that?
Huh?
Did they keep you?
We were doing as part of our training, we had to do so many sermons. So I actually toyed with the idea of becoming an ordained minister. And Susan said, I'm not going to be a pastor's wife. So it's like, okay.
You're not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that. That church is still the only church that has voted to be open and affirming. So they actually
voted. Really? Good for them. Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I asked that because some of the women interviewed, once they knew she was lesbian, she was no longer essential to that community.
Well, Susan's friend from college is a UCC pastor, and she was coming here, and she said, I'd like to go to your UCC church. It's like, I don't even know if we have one. So when I looked it up, it was Pilgrim Congregational churches went in with 2 other churches and formed United Church of Christ. So blah, blah, blah. Well, Pilgrim Congregational is the church I was christened in.
Oh, really? Small
so
world.
It's like, wow. So we went, and I looked at the program. It's like Pastor Emeritus Arnold. Oh my gosh, now I can't think of his name. He was the one that christened me. He's 100 years old.
So if you knew in the near future that your life was going to end, what would you like to be remembered for?
Being compassionate. If I had one thing that I could do and nothing else, I would make it my life's mission till I die to sit with people in the last moments of their life. I've worked, a lot of my body work has been, and our nonprofit works with hospice. And, Susan has had a long career with hospice. But that's my calling. I've sat with people as they die, and it's just an incredible, sacred moment. And so I would like to be known as someone who was just compassionate. I found my home when I found that. I knew I wouldn't want to do anything else.
So thank you. Do you have questions you'd like to ask me before?
I don't. I appreciate you doing this, and it's a great thing you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
You too.